In a small town on the outskirts, there stood an abandoned psychiatric hospital. The grim, half-ruined building had long been surrounded by legends and terrifying rumors. Locals claimed that gruesome experiments had been performed on patients within its walls, many of whom died in agony. After the asylum was shut down in the 1980s, strange noises were reportedly heard from inside, as if someone still wandered through its corridors. One autumn evening, two teenagers, Max and Alex, decided to check out the stories for themselves. Armed with flashlights, they climbed over the rusty fence and ventured inside. The air inside smelled of mold, and the floors creaked beneath their feet. The walls were cracked, and wires dangled from the ceiling. The first thing that struck them was the eerie silence. It was as though sound itself disappeared, swallowed up by the dark hallways. Alex nervously chuckled to ease the tension, but Max remained serious. He kept glancing behind him, as though sensing they were being watched. The boys slowly moved forward, exploring the rooms and wards. Most of the doors were boarded up, but they found one open door leading down to the basement. This was the most feared area where, according to legends, the most horrifying experiments took place. Trying not to chicken out, they began their descent. As soon as they entered the basement, the temperature noticeably dropped. Their flashlights began flickering, as though the batteries were draining. Max nervously scanned the floor and noticed footprints in the dust, fresh footprints. "Do you see that?" he whispered, pointing at the tracks. Alex, his breath shaky from fear, nodded. Suddenly, a dull thud echoed from deep within the basement, as if someone had struck a metal door. The boys froze in place. The noise repeated, this time louder, accompanied by faint, unintelligible whispers. Panicking, Alex grabbed Max's arm and suggested they leave, but Max was determined to keep going. They approached one of the doors from which the noise was coming. Mustering all his courage, Max slowly opened it. The room beyond was empty, except for a metal table with restraining straps. Rusty surgical instruments were scattered around, as if abandoned in haste. Max wanted to leave, but Alex suddenly heard footsteps behind them. Turning around, they saw a shadow standing in the hallway. It was a figure resembling a person, but the dim light made it impossible to make out the details. The figure stood still, then slowly began moving toward them. The boys ran as fast as they could, the sound of the figure's footsteps growing louder, as if it were chasing them. They rushed into another room and slammed the door behind them, breathing heavily. But soon they realized the door wouldn't lock. Just then, Max's flashlight illuminated writing on the wall that they hadn't noticed before. In blood-red letters it read, "You will not leave." Alex whimpered in terror, but something hit the door with force. Panic overwhelmed them both. Max suggested they try to escape while they still had the chance. But when they opened the door and ran into the hallway, they realized they were in a place they hadn't seen before. The corridors seemed to have changed, twisting into a maze of dark rooms. And then Alex vanished. Max, turning around, realized his friend was gone. He shouted Alex's name, but there was no answer. Alone now, Max ran blindly through the building, desperate to find his way out. Finally, he burst through the exit into the cold night air. His heart pounded so hard it felt like it would burst from his chest as he sprinted home. But the thought of Alex haunted him. Where had he gone? The next day, Max returned to the asylum with the police. But Alex was never found. No one could explain where he had disappeared to or why no one had heard any sounds during the search. For everyone else, Alex became yet another victim of the dark mysteries of the abandoned asylum. The ending remained unresolved. Alex's disappearance became a nightmare that would never leave Max, while the asylum continued to stand on the hill, guarding its dark secrets.